Greetings, everyone. I'm Eric Hansen from OTT.X, and on behalf of everyone here on the good ship OTT.X, we're glad you're here. If you're interested in getting the lowdown on what's shaking in the OTT streaming world, you are in the right place. Welcome to episode 8 of The Buzz, presented by OTT.X. Today, we are once again thrilled to welcome David Bloom to the stage to preside over an interstellar powerhouse of prognosticators, pontificators, and rabble-rousers of the streaming world, all coming together to share their thoughts about what's going on today in the fabulous world of streaming. Before we turn things over to this episode's amazing crew of Buzz-Keteers, I want to make sure to mention that you can find and subscribe to all episodes of The Buzz via podcast on Spotify. Just search for OTT.X and be sure to follow us so you receive all future episodes as well. Be sure to let your friends and colleagues know about The Buzz as well. It's catching on. We're going to drop the Spotify link into the podcast later on in the session, so you'll be able to grab it easily. With that, I'm thrilled to welcome this episode's moderator and a great partner to OTT.X, the one and only David Bloom, senior contributor at Forbes.
Everybody going? Got a good crew here. I'm going to have them all turn their video so we can magically see them here in the proscenium of Zoom. The Zoom Cinium, I guess, is probably the best term for it. I'll let each of them briefly introduce themselves. We'll get Thomas on here as well, I hope. But let's start with Kristen, live from her cabana, her Cannes cabana. Kristen.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. My name is Kristen Bedno. I have been in the sales and licensing distribution space for film and series for about 18 years now, and for those counting at home, yes, I did start when I was 5. I was spent a lot of time at Stars, Lionsgate, started out in the indie space, and currently I am the head of partnerships and acquisitions for VA Media, which is an Australian-based company. We have over 100 either owned and operated or managed channels that are on YouTube and across social media.
Great. Thomas.
Yeah, so I'm a CEO of Invincible Entertainment. We are a film and television distribution company, and then we also have operations in streaming with our Galaxy TV platform and broadcast TV with YTA Broadcast Network and Fuel TV. And
I must say that Thomas indeed must feel invincible. He is actually in Las Vegas for CES, among 175,000 virus-carrying humans from around the planet. So he's got one of them sturdy immune systems. So stay safe, and I hope it's profitable for you. And we'll definitely be starting about your views from the show floor and beyond as part of the conversation. Quincy.
Good morning, everyone. How you doing? My name is Quincy Newell. I am CEO of 2114 Media. We are a strategic advisory business that services the entertainment sector. We also have a channel management business. I have a partnership with Fuse Media with a fast channel called Shades of Black that is distributed across most all of the platforms. Also the managing attorney and owner of Newell Law Firm PC. We are an entertainment-focused transactional law practice.
Right. Andy.
Yeah, I am SVP of Global Account Strategy at Deluxe Media and rabble-rouser of the group, I guess.
No, that's your children, the live trees only terrorists, eco-terrorists that you're raising. So sorry, that was a joke from our prep session before this. And finally, Mike Vorhaus, apparently no longer sitting outside of a parking lot at Cedars-Sinai. So where are you, Mike?
I found a picture of my backyard.
By the way, Quincy, much nicer backyard, I might say, than the Cedars-Sinai parking lot.
Yeah, so. You've seen it. I just got to say, Quincy, man, congratulations. You've got more jobs than even David Bloom.
Well, I aspire to be more Bloom-like.
No.
I get it. Totally. So I've been on my own for the last 6 years, you guys. I can't recommend it enough. I spent 25 years at Magid. I built our internet and gaming practice. And I'm, on a couple of public boards and on a couple of private boards. I'm doing a lot of advising and a touch of investing, and been enjoying there is life after 60.
Life after 60 and life after Maggot. So who knew?
There's definitely life after Maggot. Let me assure you of
Those
that.
things could be true. So I just thought they went Old Yeller on you or something when you left Maggie. Anyway, so let's start with the mega tech gathering of the week of the year at CES. And Thomas, I'm going to let you talk a little bit about what you're doing there, but also anything that you're kind of picking up on the ground, as it were. Hopefully, nothing actually picking up off the ground, but like, what are you seeing out there? What's the scene? Because part of what's been interesting is that all the big streaming services, except Apple, shockingly, are apparently at CES doing meeting after meeting with brands and advertisers, trying to buff up their streaming ad-supported services, and that's a big change, really, from 2, 3, 4 years ago, I think. So I'm just sort of curious what you're seeing, what you're hearing, so on and so forth.
Well, to be honest, I haven't seen a whole lot yet. I landed here last night about 3 a.m. after flying through that big, Northeastern on the East Coast. So,
So you've been up since then, right?
Yeah. But, my team's been on the ground here, and we had some pretty good meetings yesterday. And so I could provide some feedback from that. I don't think it's a shock to anybody here that the ad market has been less than stellar over the past couple of years, over the last year or so, really. What people are talking about is like the recycling that some of these bigger ad networks are seeing, at least on the programmatic side, where they're kind of reselling themselves, their inventory, to kind of prop up their own revenues. And instead of letting it just go straight out to the market, right? So there's concerns there.
Yeah, sales dealing, is this sort of like
bit of that, yeah.
East Dallas SNL loan scandals, where this guy signs it and the next guy signs the mortgage and the price goes up 10% and he's just sitting next to him? I mean, what are we talking about here?
They're basically, buying the inventory, reselling it to themselves, buying the inventory, reselling it to themselves, and then doing that 3 or 4 times before they put it out into the open marketplace. So something would be a $15 CPM is now like a $5 to $7 CPM by the time it comes out. And so we're seeing some of that. But really what a lot of people have been talking about is just the need to do exactly what you mentioned, David, which is direct ad sales, right? To start cutting out the programmatic market, because, by the time these ads pass through all the various hands that they're passing through, the revenues are just really, really getting chopped down. So a lot of the streamers just realizing, the programmatic marketplace isn't what it was. And there's lots of self-dealing. And so we need to start looking at how we can build direct relationships with these brands and advertisers.
Interesting. Yeah. So shockingly, after 20 years of programmatic ad sales in the display universe and websites and all that, streaming gets to find out, it cuts out a sales team, but it cuts out sales too.
Yeah.
Funny how that works, isn't it?
Yeah. So any thoughts, Andy, on your end for what this means if we are seeing sort of this there's a really crude term that I won't use, but this circle of sharing, shall we say, internal sharing of ad stuff, and what that says about the state of the ad business, because that is literally what everybody's hanging their business on right now. And I'm sort of curious what you see there. I'd like to hear from everybody else about what that means and how that impacts the smaller operators, particularly who are often members of OTT.X, for instance. So what are you seeing?
All of the content owners have plunged all of this money into standing up these streaming businesses, and now they're trying to figure out a way to pay for it. The subscribers alone aren't cutting it, so they need additional revenue streams. So ad supported is a good way to do it. In a lot of cases, it'll provide them higher margins. I think the challenge with that in the streaming space is that nobody knows how to get the right value or to value it. Are advertisers getting value for their ads? Are streamers getting value? Like, Nielsen's the only measure people have, but I think we can all agree that that's out of date and not really accurate, but it's the only metric they have that they can lock into. So I think people have to figure out how to get value out of that and where their money is spent wisely.
Sure. I mean, Nielsen was already a debased currency before Disney Plus kind of inaugurated the modern era of streaming after the three pioneers got their starts back a decade earlier. Since then it really has been. I mean, Nielsen has struggled to get its arms around all this stuff, and who else is out there really delivering, right? So the scale isn't the same as it was in the heyday of cable and broadcast. What is that ad worth? Programmatic to me is a race to the bottom. But Kristen, I'm interested in what you think about that, given your particular focus
and taking exactly off of what you just said, David. Especially in the independent film space, there's always a programming and then a reprogramming. And then it's the Wild West all over again on how folks are supposed to make money, from independent filmmakers. And then also, these independent distributors where there was a linear path for such a long time.
We knew what that was. Like, and we've got Sundance next week, right? And
exactly.
Sundance is going to be you debut at Sundance. Somebody pays you $5 million. You do a stair-step release beginning in late December, and then you go wide this time in time for Oscar consideration.
Yeah, and then you go through your broadcast, your TVOD, your SVOD. AVOD was a window that maybe you didn't even think about because you were making so much money within the SVOD space. When Amazon was still paying 16 to 18 cents per hour, it wasn't great, but it was still something for SVOD. When TVOD, you could actually get folks to buy or rent a film, even in an independent environment. But all of that's changed. Amazon, not being so interested right now in building up, their SVOD, they're pushing a lot of independent content they have done for the last couple of years to their Freevee, which is their ad-supported platform. Because it just wasn't making financial sense for them to have all of this SVOD content and they weren't making the ad revenue off of it. So we're seeing now a transition. And again, it's the Wild West, right? Where now as an independent filmmaker, as an independent distributor, you're trying to figure out just how to stay even, right? With your money, that now you're not making the $400,000 or $500,000 from licensing to Netflix. Well, where are you going to make that? You're going to make that now in AVOD, but now it's the business of stacking pennies. And you have to be on, 20 different platforms instead of just one sale. And distributors are still trying to get used to it. Filmmakers especially are trying to get used to it when they used to see these big MGs. And now we tell them that in this world, in this AVOD space, big MGs don't necessarily exist anymore. We're all trying to make, sense of it. And everybody's just, trying to stay afloat at this point in this Wild West, which, is exciting for viewers, but, difficult for our industry right now.
Right. And when you say makes sense, that's two spellings of that word. You're making sense, stacking pennies, as you put it. Making it intelligible as a business, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm particularly curious from your standpoint, because of your advisory work and your involvement in particularly focused programming with the channel you guys have. How does it work for a niche operator as well as all the people you're working with? I mean, have we figured out anything? Have you guys got any secret sauce? As smart as you are, I figured if anybody's got to figure it out, it's got to be you.
Well, I don't know. You said pontificator in the beginning, and I'm not sure if I am that person, but I will try.
You look like a pope. You could be.
Well, I just find it interesting. I was reading this post by Evan Shapiro, and what he mentioned was the tone in the conversations and the agenda at CES 2024 seemed to be focused entirely on one thing, and that is what's wrong with the media tech ecosystem and how do we fix it. So everything we're talking about, to me, seems to shine a light on there's an issue, there's a problem, there's a business problem with the model. And I always found it interesting that, as a business person and someone that, stood up companies and created business plans and so on, we always, set the stage for how do we track the profitability? Is the business model sound? And what I've been witnessing over the past few years is, companies have been running down this streaming path, not understanding or even knowing where the light at the end of the tunnel is. So What's happening now seems to
Or
be
even which directions the trains were coming from. It was more than one train, right? I mean,
yes, it was, like, Kristen said, it's like kind of the wild, wild west. People were chasing things that they thought might be, a way to stave off some of the losses that they were realizing in traditional cable and also DVD. We got to remember there's a multifaceted, diverse business model with multiple revenue streams. Without understanding, can this actually replace that? And is this where you put all of your focus? And so I always thought that was interesting. And so to me, this is really something that is inevitable, right? It's a reckoning.
This took a while to manifest, right?
Yes, it's an evolution of what they needed to probably focus on and talk about prior to running down this path full steam with no idea of how the business model actually works and what that can mean for their businesses and their organization.
There was certainly a lot of Me Too going on. And actually, I don't want to use the word Me Too. That's got a very specific meaning. Though
sure.
In Hollywood, a pretty commonly used term, a lot of stuff. We'll just call it that. Oh, Disney's doing it, so we got to do it. Even if we're a tenth the size of Disney, we put out 5 or 10 movies a year, and we got a nice broadcast network. Not that I'm talking about anybody in particular, Sherry Redstone, but Mike, because you advised a lot of companies, because you worked at Magid back in the day, advising a lot of media companies about actual business models that did make money, what should it take now, and what are we going to expect this year?
Sure. Well, my
you are not well framed, though. I have to say, this is no Ozu shooting you. There we go. There's your whole face. There we go.
It's funny. My little thumbnail is a little different than what you're seeing, which is weird. Anyway, no, look, my long-term macro read on this, back to when I started, working with like YouTube before they were bought by Google, is the ability to make content's rising, the cost, the time, the quality, up, and distribution's not as limited as it used to be. And all the good things that drove high margins at the traditional, if I think of them as studio-based media companies, have largely disappeared. So the one or two really big guys will have some pricing and tiering and will make it. But these other services, if they're not cutting it on the subscription revenue, advertising revenue, you can work to get a good number. You can hire people. You can do programmatic limitations. You can make a huge effort directly with brands, and then your cost of sales goes way up. But the fact of the matter is, there's just 10 times more ad avails every year, and it seems to be infinite. So I tell you something: if you lined up Bob Iger and Walker Hayes from TikTok, one of my favorites, I'll take Walker Hayes' productions every day. And again, it's my old thing that you guys know I pushed on Forbes. Quibi sucked. YouTube's TikTok's great. It's just that simple. And by the way, big hit, sure, make a big hit. Great. My good friend Lorenzo Bonaventura makes hit movies. Great. For the 10 hit movies a year, congratulations, everybody.
Right. So this one hits for $1 billion, but the market, it's worth noting, of course, the theatrical business still going to be down, was down last year, is nowhere close to the 11 plus billion it was making in 2019, 2018, still down 25%. And a bunch of films that were going to get made got pushed off or scotched during the strikes. And 2024 is looking like a pretty threadbare year. I don't think Disney has like a shockingly low number of films that it's coming out with this year, for instance, and it's always been, pretty much a real mill there, but it's getting a lot of pushback because it was doing that.
Look, if those guys could get away with just old content and pre-existing content, then they'd be, Tubi and Pluto. Hey, let me say a quick thing about CES for your audience. So I didn't go this year. It's probably the first time in, 20-something years. Too damn expensive. Any decent hotel sucks. You can see every worthwhile presentation online. The only thing you lose by not going, if you're, David or myself or Shelley, who's there big time, is the press is there. Right. So for me, CES has become more like a way to get press coverage and less of a way to do any kind of meaningful, CES related business. So I'm at home sleeping in, and I don't have to take Purell every 5 minutes.
Yeah, you're not going to die from Purell overexposure, so there's that. But it is interesting, you kind of covered a lot of it. But as a member of the media, I'll let everybody else be my staff, right, and report about. It doesn't feel like there's a lot coming out of the big show. There's not any groundbreaking technology. The only thing anybody's kind of like, "Ooh, this is going to be interesting," is Apple's announcement of the Vision Pro finally coming out on February 2nd. They announced it originally during the Worldwide Developers Conference last June. It's priced at a mere 3,400.
I think it's $10,000, David.
Yeah. A mere 3,400.
No. That's they actually they cut the price from 10,000 to 3,499. 10,000, I think, was the cost of the Lisa back in 1980. Gosh, it was 84 when that came out. The Apple Lisa, the predecessor to the Mac, and that was back when 10,000 was real money. But that being said, 3,499 still not nothing. But the reports of the experience are it's quite extraordinary, and it bumped up their stock after some fate on Monday. After there's been some what's Apple doing with AI? Can they keep growing services? People aren't buying iPhones. Huawei's resurgent in China. It's a big antitrust case probably coming from the Department of Justice here in an election year. All that. So their stock's been going down, and they announced February 2nd. Let's invest this. Any thoughts, each of you, actually, on whether the Vision Pro, either itself or the less expensive models that will surely come, will actually matter to get immersive entertainment going? It really fell off the table when AI arrived, apparently on December 17th last year. And everybody went from being the chief Web3 immersive officer to the chief AI officer in their corporations and talent agencies and all the rest. Kristen, what do you think? Is this going to make a difference?
With Oculus and Meta already in the game, for me, it's less about, what it is, what system you're using, what it is you're putting on your face. It's really more about the content. And I think until Hollywood or, just filmmakers in general start producing the kind of content that can be 360 degrees, then it's not going to be as immersive, and it's going to be a very limited group of people who are interested in it. Thus, it's going to be difficult, to grow revenue over it. Once they get the content and the technology aligned, bring that on. I loved using the Oculus. I just don't feel like it's an everyday kind of need for somebody like me.
Well, I know that Disney is creating content for the Vision Pro, specifically in an announcement that is part of the announcement they made back in June. And Disney knows a little bit about other kinds of content, maybe not the business models anymore, as we've been discussing, but they know how to make some pretty compelling shows. So it'll be interesting to see what they do in this new universe. And I guess most of the App Store, such as it is, including all the games, will be instantly available. So that's 1 million plus somethings for folks who want to do that. So there's some stuff there from day one that's interesting. Thomas, what do you think from there on the show floor?
I agree with what Kristen's saying. It's about, obviously the games are going to be there, and there's lots of great VR games and immersive games. But as far as our world, film and TV, there's nothing. There's really not a lot. And it's great that Apple's going to produce a couple of movies, but that's going to last all of 5 minutes. So until there's scale around it, I think it's a great opportunity for someone to jump in and start creating content around that. But, there are not, hundreds of devices out on the market that people are using all the time to watch movies and TV yet. So I think it's got a minute before you start seeing scale there. But there could be scale with the right filmmaker coming out with the right show, doing the right kind of thing where it's like released exclusively on these things that could start driving people to go buy these products to have these experiences. But it's got to be on the level, for sure. But
I think that what they do is they have Martin Scorsese do a version of Killers of the Flower Moon and release it in 5-minute increments, and that would cover your viewing for at least the next 2 years, right?
Or get him to remake The Godfather, and then in that case, every man over 40 would have to go buy one.
Oh yeah,
But maybe
if
that's
you do The
not it.
Godfather in Rome, in the Roman Empire,
There you
every
go.
dude over 40 would just, it's like they would never stop thinking about that, right?
Yeah.
That's the
Quincy,
easy answer, but maybe
Yeah.
that's not the right answer. Maybe it's not about scale. Maybe people need to figure out how to use the medium to tell a
Yes.
compelling story. Like Martin Scorsese has done his whole life in 2D. He's genius, but maybe he can't translate to 3D. There's a lot of tricks. You need to tell people with cues where to look. Like they might
Right.
be looking
Audio
over here and the
cues
action
or
happens there.
light
It's
or-
a
yeah.
completely new medium. So I think people will come check out the new device. They'll come because it's novel. They'll pop in and they'll see what's going on. But you need to figure out new voices and new storytelling methods to tell a compelling story in that medium for it to catch on at scale. You need to bring something to the table that people aren't experiencing with 2D television.
Yeah, I remember interviewing
I agree
Randall
with that.
Kleiser. I remember interviewing Randall Kleiser, the guy who directed Grease and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and he did a fairly early immersive show based on originally from a script he'd written when he was in college at USC 40 years earlier, and he adapted it. But he said, it's like if you took theater in the round and you inverted it, instead of the audience being around the performers are around the audience. And so you're right, you have to find ways to pull the eye over here or over here when this thing is going on. And he had a fairly fun little trick the way he did it because of the setup of the show. But you're right, it's a very different way of thinking about how you stage an experience, right?
Mhm.
And
think
how
about
you privilege the audience too.
You could literally do two movies in one. You could have, forward-looking show in front of you, and then there could be a completely different movie happening behind you that's moving across at the same thing. So, there's really some really great, compelling storytelling that could come out of it. With somebody really sitting down, like, okay, to what Andy was saying, how can I take this new medium and do something really innovative and cool and tell a story in a way that's never been done before. So
I think
wanted to
a
actually-
concert experience or a theater experience, like a live events experience, could be amazing. Imagine being front row at a concert that you couldn't go to, and you can look around, you see the band, you watch the guitar player, you watch the drummer, you turn around, the audience is going crazy behind you. I think stuff like that, putting you in places where you couldn't normally go, might be a nice.
I think that
Yeah.
noted American filmmaker Taylor Swift will be all over that. So
The application is going to be critical to it. Of course, the price point's a challenge, right?
Yeah.
But I think Apple's lucky because they have Apple diehards. I'm one of those, right? So,
also guilty.
There you go. There's an audience there for it. But the application is going to be important. I know that we try to force it into films and movies, but I think Andy, you brought up something very interesting: live events, live concerts, right? It could be sports. Sports could be a big thing. Gaming, definitely, and education, right? So there's
and training. Education and training. So education is not just Andy's eco-terrorist children. It is also adults learning a new job, getting trained for that job, or understanding a new process or within their system and all that. And that's been something that's actually made, like the Google glasses of yore, gave them a long afterlife in the corporate sphere, right? And that's those people can take $34.99 and go, oh yeah, that's fine.
So on the academic level, institutions, can afford those things and create relationships with Apple to bring that into the universities and schools. So I think there's other applications. Whether it will be kind of a generally used product in the near future, that's a question mark, right? How does that fit into everyone's daily activity? It's different. It's a definitely different scenario. But if it's the right application, if it's the right usage, then it could be a very, very strong product. But I think the price point, of course, for that particular product would have to drop.
I know that you've got an iMac in your backdrop, so you are absolutely
Apple TV, the pod.
Yeah, you got it all. It's pretty much the whole catalog. So, Mike, just curious, because you've never been shy about throwing the occasional verbal bomb. What do you think about the prospects for the $34.99 Apple Vision Pro? Or is this just a door opener to get people's attention, and we'll see what happens in a year with the next product?
Well, let me give you a somewhat related response to that. And I saw this in other CE products that I've worked on. I don't think this is what Apple has in mind, but it is. $34.99, get all the early adopters, whatever that is, half a million, $1 million, 2 million, and then just drop the price at the next reasonable price drop period, whether that's Christmas or, summer or whatever. But I think we all know this. It's a big purchase decision until you get under $1,000.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's a big part. You're right. That probably makes sense. Keep that model. Maybe further update. You get the M7 chip or whatever they're on next week at Apple to power the thing, so it's faster and less power consumption and all that.
What is it doing that the Oculus isn't? Oculus is a great product too, and that's been out in the market for a long time. And
it's much higher. It is much higher resolution. It is much better audio. I mean, there is a difference, a 10%. The 10x cost difference is a lot, but some part of that delta is actually much better technology, including awareness outside of the headset. So they have a series of sensors and cameras outside. And this isn't creepy at all, but there's also a thing. It takes a picture of your eyes and projects them on the front of the screen so you can see your face through the thing, though it's technically your face. And you inside the thing can see what's going on around you, which is much more interesting in terms of merging the real world and the virtual worlds. And doing all that. So that is not something the Oculus can do. Now, whether that is a compelling experience, that's a wildly different question, right?
Yeah.
So
I think a compelling experience to me would be, this was Quincy's idea, we strap a couple of cameras to Travis Kelce or Cooper Kupp, and you're literally there on the field.
I want one camera on Travis Kelce, and I want one camera on Taylor Swift as she's watching the game. That's what I really want. And then you can switch back and forth as he makes the catch. You don't have to wait for the network to cut to the box up there with KT and the Kelce clan, the far-flung Kelce clan. So that's the experience. But seriously, that brings me to the NFL this year in 2023 had 93 of the 100 most watched shows on television. 93. I wrote something. I do this weekly thing with the editor of Next TV, who I write for. We do a weekly conversation, as it were, in text. And one of our things was, why doesn't the NFL just cut out the middleman and just make everybody go to the NFL Network? And my response was, well, not everybody's going to pay for the NFL Network. You lose all your casual fans, and there's some revenue and pop culture impact to be made from being on all those broadcast networks. But it is interesting. It's like if the only thing that's left is football on traditional cable and broadcast that people will actually watch in any numbers, when does it come to the Apple Vision Pro? But also, what do they do for programming? I mean, they can't do the NFL, though we've got the new UFL coming out in March, right? And so it's going to be football 24/7, it feels like. I mean, what's going to be left? Is it just going to be football as carried by middlemen? Is that the business that we're looking at for the fading legacy broadcast and cable operations? Who wants to take that?
Or they're just going to have to make cheaper content.
Cheaper content, or they make cheaper content. Either you pay for NFL rights or you make reality competitions, right? Yeah.
And then you fill it in with a bunch of cool shit that young people have made, and I mean, it's just, the sitcom and the drama only on 3 or 4 channels, only on once a year. It's just dead.
Yeah.
I can't even take my TV to bed. I can have my TV like 8 feet away on my bed, but my iPad, it goes right into bed with me, and Netflix and I are intimate. And I'm really sorry. I'm not joking here. David Geffen told a good friend of mine, Nick Wexler, that he should double down on Warner Brothers Discovery stock at $19. And a good friend of mine who's an old-fashioned old media guy was really listening. And I said, don't do that under any condition. They're nowhere near their bottom. $11 recently. So
yes, $11 recently. Yeah.
I'd be looking at tax loss carry forwards for these traditional guys 10 years from now.
Right. They may need to cancel the network and write it off as a tax loss, I mean, just like he did Batgirl. I mean, they may need to do it to Warner Brothers Discovery. That being said, Rich Greenfield, the analyst at Lightshed Partners, who likes to stir things up, among the many predictions he put out on the 7th, was one saying he doesn't think any of the big three studio-based legacy media companies, Paramount, Warner Brothers Discovery, or NBC Universal, will be part of a merger this year. And part of what he talks about is just politically, it's not going to happen with this administration, and it may not happen with whoever wins in the election in November. But he also says, when did it make sense to say, okay, you got a bunch of fading legacy media assets, we've got a bunch of fading legacy media assets, let's put them together and have even more fading legacy media assets, and that'll work great, right? He's like, that doesn't make sense, right? So,
and they'll get some synergies. They'll get some synergies. It'll look good for a year or two, and then lo and behold, 5 years from now, it turns out the asset they bought cheap, they bought it expensive.
We're still overpriced. Yes, even cheap. Yeah.
I would not buy a content company, traditional content company today, that's not cross media, under a set price. I would work with the seller on a price, and then I would offer them 50% of the net income over like 5 or 10 years or something like that, because the net income is going to go down.
Right. It's like, okay, so we're going to, instead of it being, we'll say 20 billion for Warner Brothers, just to say. Warner Brothers, WBD. You're saying 10 billion and basically an earnout for 10 years on whatever we can scrape out of this thing over the next decade.
Yeah,
what do you think?
Yeah,
Andy?
but I wouldn't give them too big a cash up front payment. Because the problem is, whatever Warner Brothers Discoveries, libraries, and current productions are worth today, they will not be worth that 5 years from now. It is impossible, because it's supply and demand, the amount of content being produced.
Yeah,
and
that's
the number
true.
of places you can get it.
Right. It is worth noting that I just saw something come over the wires. Prime Video is laying off hundreds of people at MGM and Prime Video, they just announced. So if even Amazon's going, oh, maybe we should spend money appropriate to what we're bringing in, which is a weird thought. If even Amazon's doing it, it's not a good sign for the industry as a whole, right? Because they should have been fairly well insulated.
And they love losing money on everything they do and scale it. So
right, well, they love losing money.
It's a loss leader, really.
It's a loss leader. They love losing money until everybody else is out of the business. And
yeah,
then
exactly.
Then they raise it up and harvest their margins. Well, what's left if everything is an economic debacle? You guys are all making money. You all are filthy rich. Kristen has a cabana, for God's sake. How wealthy do you have to be to have a cabana? If it comes with a cabana, boy, I'll be really impressed, but I suspect your husband will be less impressed. I'll just throw that out there.
I could be in Fiji and I'm just actually lying to you all. So either way, yeah, right. One of the things I was thinking, and we're talking about, all of these companies, and are there going to be mergers? Are there going to be acquisitions? This is I was at Stars for many years, and then yes. Lionsgate purchased Stars at the end of 2016. And that's actually where I met Quincy, because Quincy was at Code Black at the time. Yes. And so you see, Lionsgate buys Stars, Lionsgate buys Summit, Lionsgate just recently bought, E1 at the end of the year. We're seeing all of these acquisitions, and now they're spinning Stars out of the company. One of the things I think is so difficult is not only, we're talking, valuations and who should have bought who, and maybe Stars should have bought Lionsgate if it hadn't been a Canadian company, and for tax reasons that made sense. But, there's an opportunity when you're buying content and you're buying other companies to take the best of what company one does and merge that with the rest of your company. And so often we're seeing, instead of making it one company with these different brands, you're seeing people just get out a giant roll of duct tape and just duct tape one company onto the side of the other, and you're not utilizing skills, you're not utilizing people the right way. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden you're seeing, okay, well now Lionsgate or Stars did 10% layoffs last year because they can't be profitable if they're at the scale they're at. But if there could be more communication and utilizing best out of each company, that's how you make it work, but nobody's doing it. Nobody's spending the time to, you know, assimilate companies. We're just duct taping them.
Yeah.
I
Let me just put in a word for duct tape, digital or actual, because it does keep the universe in one piece from flying off into entropy. So
Sure, especially the blue duct tape. I love
the
that.
blue, yeah, absolutely.
Another thing that I think is
Here,
super
what are you
important.
seeing out there, Quincy? I just real quickly.
I mean, I'm really interested in the motivation behind, you know, some of the decisions, right? You know, we're in a business that, you know, of course, the major companies, their main focus is shareholder value often, right? And some of the acquisitions really are about shareholder value, right? You know, increasing share price, you know, propping up the company as if it is growing when it actually isn't growing through performance. So, you know, I think, operate in an environment where on a year-to-year basis, we see this, you know, if you've been in the industry for some time, every fourth quarter, it used to be doomsday, right? There would be some layoffs, and all of that is focused on increasing the bottom line in some way, shape, or form to increase shareholder value. So, you know, the motivations behind, you know, especially the Warner and Paramount conversation, really they're two depressed companies. They need to figure out how to increase shareholder value, how to, you know, show some movement, you know, with growth. And the way that they're doing that is considering or evaluating potential acquisitions that would prop it up for a short period of time. But they're always going to come back to the same issue, right? And that, you know, Kristen mentioned this, and I think Andy mentioned this, is that what assets do you have? Are they actually valuable? Are they actually worth it? You know, and then they have to.
And are they going to be worth it 5 years from now?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah. So we're in this cycle that it just continues to happen. I find that very interesting.
You know, I want to, Thomas, I'd love to hear your view on this. Some Netflix stats of note that came out this last week. Netflix released about 16% fewer films and original films and TV shows in 2023 than the year before, after a decade of, you know, more across the globe. They still produce more than everybody else. So yes, they've got scale. They've got 270 million subs now, Mike? Is that the number, I think? Worldwide? Something like that?
250 plus. Yeah.
It's at least 250. Yeah, we know that. So 250 million subs. So they've got scale that no one else has. Is that the only secret to them being able to cut 16% of their programming and still have more programming and more customers, more paying customers than anybody else? Or is there something else that they're doing right, Thomas?
Well, this kind of cuts into what I was going to try to say earlier, is that, you know, there's a lot of focus on what these companies are going to do, how they're going to merge, how they're going to acquire, how they're going to build value. And there's not a lot of conversation about what kind of experience are they providing to consumers and to viewers.
Oh, that.
Right? It's just like, you know, you want to increase your bottom line, give the viewer something an experience that they're going to want to open their wallets for, right? And something that's going to cut through the white noise. So everyone's focusing on, you know, acquisitions and doing this and buying this library and that library. This is all shit that people have already seen. What are you doing to develop new properties, new things, like, you know, like the Harry Potter world's been played out. All these things have been played out to death, right? So what's the new thing? How are you going to bring something in? I recognize that that's a risky investment, but getting into what Netflix is doing, they're probably just realizing that they don't need to keep pumping out the volume and spending the money to keep their users. And what they probably should be focusing on is producing less crap and you know, that saying less is more. Produce higher quality content that people get in. I mean, think about the world of HBO and Showtime before, like, everything got messed up. You know, they had a couple of very successful series that were really well done, really well thought out, and that was enough to carry people to stay subscribers for the entire year, just for those couple of things. So I think the conversation really needs to be, what are we doing as an industry to create a great viewing experience? Because that's ultimately what we're in the business to be doing, not just buying and selling assets to try to increase shareholder value.
Yeah, not just financial maneuvers. Any thoughts about lessons that one can take from Netflix other than, you know, screw it, we're just going to license to them and cash the checks?
Well, I think it makes a lot of sense for them, right? Like Netflix is a very data-driven company, and they're only a decade old. So when you're a brand new company, you need to build a library. You need to build content. You need to create product. They see how much people are watching, and if they're putting out more than people are watching, that's money that they're not getting a good return on. So to Thomas's point, like they should focus on better content because they want to keep putting out new stuff that people are going to truly be engaged in, that they're going to talk about, that there's going to have a buzz. They need to keep being seen as the premium product.
Yeah. Mike, any thoughts on this more, John? How it fits in the big picture with Netflix? And I mean, they're clearly the winner by a long way. They cut all these shows and their stock price went up. Their subscribers went up notably. I think they had a 7 million ad in the third quarter, if I remember. And I mean, any lessons here for the rest of the industry other than just take the check?
Well, look, I see in my research, consumer research, that people still plan to add another 1.X services. Netflix has already had a bunch of people in the U.S. try them a couple of times and give up, so they know what their U.S. population is. I think they've got pricing power. They're kind of like the HBO of the old days. They got a great brand. They've just converted it to more users than HBO ever could have hoped to. So I mean, they're the hard one to. I mean, they're going to be. It's kind of like who's going to be the Netflix of the future? Netflix. By
That's
the way,
an easy answer, right?
By the way, at a risk of being mean to my colleague who just spoke, I think Netflix as a company is much older than 10 years. But more importantly,
yeah, it's 1997. I interviewed.
But their original content.
Yeah, but I know. You didn't let me finish. In 2007, they started streaming content. So in all fairness, they've been at this for 17 years.
But House of Cards was like 2016, 2015.
I mean, now you're cutting the issue quite thin. You know, to say that Netflix has only been in this for 10 years is just, I think, not accurate.
Okay.
Right. But that's actually an interesting point in that they have been at it. And I think that's a general issue with the industry. People don't really understand how long Netflix has been at this. Right. They built a consumer base through rentals, right? They were the blockbuster killer, if you remember that.
Right.
You know, then they pivoted into digital, right? So they transitioned. And they've been playing the long game. I think they have been pretty smart in how they approached and also disrupted the industry. And it felt deliberate to me, right? With what they're paying their employees and their executives, right? Which outpaced the traditional industry. They leveraged the industry and their catalog to build a business, then pivoted into original productions. Also, they are playing a real estate game, right? So their subscribership eclipses everyone's, but they're also in multiple territories.
Yeah.
Right. So their brand travels around the world, and that's their major advantage. Now they're, I think maybe they got a little complacent, but they're now making an additional pivot, of course, with ad-supported, right? So they're playing a long game. Everyone else has been playing a short chase game, thinking that, even with some of the streaming services that were launched, thinking that they can reach break even in 3 years or 2 years.
It's not that different from the business they did. It should be no big deal having a direct to consumer after years of being a wholesaler.
Exactly. Completely
it's
unrealistic.
Hard about this, right?
Right. So unrealistic. So, and then also if you were thinking about when Disney was, coming up with their SVOD service, everyone was saying, oh, who's going to be the Netflix killer? Well, maybe Tubi. Right, because ad-supported, which was the stepchild for the longest time, has become the model to follow. So, I think Netflix is playing its own game. Everyone else is reacting to what's happening around the industry and trying to figure out how to solve it without understanding their entire history and how they evolved over time and how long that took to happen.
Yeah, I think it's interesting.
I was just going to say quickly that Netflix really started out as they were licensing. It was licensing and acquisitions. And then they actually pivoted. I believe it was 2008 when I was at Starz, where you could actually get Starz through your Netflix subscription. It was the very first time they had done that. And they did that with a big series. It was Spartacus. So, it was sexy, and bloody. There was adventure, one of my favorites ever. But they used that series and that partnership with Starz to bolster, one, to get people to come to Netflix, two, so they didn't have to actually pay for Stars as, an individual, standalone SVOD. But then it was, okay, well, now you can come to Netflix and you can see all of these things. And they tested that out. And now they're doing it with everything, every single platform. You can get, your Hallmarks, you can get, your all of these different platforms now on Netflix at a discount. But they were experimenting that with Stars back in 2008. They started all of this. They started paying, the big MGs to the filmmakers and the distributors. They pulled that rug out from everybody. But they really have been the catalyst. And as I think maybe Quincy said, everybody else is just playing catch up to them. And until somebody else, comes up with something first, Netflix is king.
And that's interesting.
I think it's a good point.
You're bringing up the license fees, and they're paying, they're overpaying for license fees, even deals, and then they pulled the rug out. It's like, to me, that's a marketing strategy, right?
Yeah.
They were doing something very different than what we understood, and it really was about marketing, right? How do we use this ecosystem that's around us, that we're kind of outsiders to brand, to acquire customers, right? And also content. And that they were very, I don't think they get enough credit for their strategy and their strategic planning.
I would be talking to.
I was going to say, most importantly, they've been learning for a decade longer than most of their competitors about how to do this very different business. Than it is not what Hollywood did for a century. This is a different business.
I would be literally talking to filmmakers, right? So working in distribution, right? You talk to filmmakers and you say, okay, well, what would you like to happen to your film? And everybody would say, oh, I need it to go theatrical. And you go, okay, that's cute. That's, you have a little tiny film, 5 theaters for you. But then they'd say, oh, it has to be on Netflix. And I said, well, Netflix does not pay the MGs that you think they pay or that they paid 10 years ago for content. Oh, I don't know. It's, it's the glitz, it's the glamour, right? Of being on Netflix, to where I would literally say, do you want your film to be on Netflix, or do you want to put your kids through college? Because Netflix does not pay the kind of money that you think it pays. So if it's all about going home and telling your friends that your film is on Netflix, and that, pat on the back is going to pay your visa bill, then good on you. But it's not the case anymore.
It is that time. OTT.X buzz that we ask each of you if there is a story we haven't really talked about that is buzzing in your brain that you'd like to share for maybe a minute. If you can, throw it into the chat so people can see it, link to it, but if not, that's fine. Kristen, since you were just talking, anything out there in the world that sort of interests you, engages you, that you're thinking about right now that's affecting what you're doing?
Yeah, I just put it in the chat right now. We were talking about Warner Brothers Discovery just a little bit ago. They just announced, there's an article on the C21 that announced that Warner Brothers Discovery acquired a Turkish SVOD company called Blue TV. And I think this is really encompasses a lot of what we're talking about, right? Like what's going to happen, with the larger companies, how are they going to expand? And I think one of the answers that we're seeing a lot, especially in the indie distribution space, is we're seeing an expansion of territories and an expansion of languages right now. And the companies like Tubi, Roku, Pluto, Zumo, Peacock, all of those, Netflix, has been doing it for a long time. Their goals right now are to get into additional territories, take the original English language content that they own and create dubs for those, and then also utilize the content that is on, say, this Turkish, so original Turkish language content. And they're trying to get their brand out to as many places globally as they can. One, in this case, utilizing infrastructure that's already there and available via Blue TV, which was there. But two, again, their content. And it's less marketing. You don't have to build something from the ground up. And you're utilizing what you have versus what you would have to spend an exorbitant amount of money to, create. I think this is part of the global streaming wars that will be taking place, I suspect, in 2024 is about territory and language expansion.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Netflix has been in 192 countries since 2016, if I recall, when they punched the button. All of a sudden, they were everywhere. But yeah, everybody else, again, still trying to catch up. Thomas, any thoughts? Any story that's buzzing around for you?
Yeah, so Evan Shapiro put his kind of top 5 things to look for in 24. One of the things that really caught my eye was the OS wars, right? So, the different TV manufacturers and their kind of market share. I think that is going to become more and more important as they become like the gatekeepers onto what apps and streaming services.
These are the OEMs you're talking about: Vizio, Samsung, LG, Sony, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly. And as these guys and these TV guys are building out their own streaming platforms, Samsung's got their Samsung TV Plus, and it's they're going to be it's going to be difficult. They're going to be taking up a slice of the pie from all the streamers. They're kind of like the new gatekeepers because these are the devices that people are watching this stuff on. And so I'm really interested to see what's going on there. I'm really interested to see what Comcast and Charter are doing with Xumo, which is their new OS platform. That kind of
with
Pluto
TVs, right? It's going to have Xumo branded TVs that they'll integrate with their stuff. So
Yep. And the MVPDs are like really adopting this as they did with the X1 platform. So I think there's something to watch there and some opportunity there with the OS.
Okay, Quincy.
Yeah, I do not have anything necessarily specific, but one thing that has been bothering me as a Prime Video subscriber, right, is the notice that I got saying that they're going to be adding ads as the default option on my Prime Video subscription.
Yep.
Which signals a lot to me, right? Especially with Amazon being, such a diversified company, that they are also, because I've always considered their kind of Prime Video entertainment sector just a loss leader. It's a way to create value for the subscribers while they're, AWS is making the money and, all their products and all of that sort of thing. But the fact that they're looking at this and saying, hey, we need to figure out how to generate additional revenue is very interesting to me, right? It's a signal, it's a real signal across the industry. Of course, Netflix was, but Prime Video, because Netflix, that's their only business. Prime Video is diversified.
Right. This is an add-on, and now you have an add-on.
Exactly.
But that's interesting. And even if you go without ad, it's interesting because they spent a lot of money on sports, the NFL deal in particular, but other sports too. And they signaled, Andy Jassy is a minority owner of the NHL franchise in Seattle. So he's a sports geek. And Andy Jassy, he clearly is into sports, and that's expensive, and it's only getting more expensive. So maybe some of this goes for that. But sports without ads is actually arguably not as good an experience because there's all these breaks like in football.
That's a good point. Yes, absolutely.
Right. It's like, what's an NFL game without ads? It's kind of weird. It's like, I need that butt ad to tell me what stupid saying is now the hip thing among the kids these days. So that's interesting. So the ad changeover and today's announcement of layoffs says a lot about value proposition there. Andy, any thoughts?
It's not significant, but you said interesting. So given that theaters are down from 11 billion to 8 billion, from pre-pandemic till now, I'm really interested to see the Taylor Swift eras and the Beyonce bringing their concerts to the theater. I think it's an interesting new thing.
Right, to do the live. Essentially what Fathom has done for the Metropolitan Opera for a decade or more. My mother is an annual subscriber to the Metropolitan Opera broadcasts that go on her little screen on Cape Cod, not far from where this photo behind me that I took is set. She goes over there and watches the Met 5 times a year and rekindles her youth with her mother at the actual Metropolitan Opera. But you're right. I think some of that, clearly, it won't all be Taylor Swift Eras Tour movie, $250 million, but your cost of goods, you're already making the movie, you're putting a couple crews on there and shooting it and cutting it, that's another $1 million, big deal, and you throw it out to theaters. Mike,
and amazing marketing for your product,
Yeah, absolutely. Any final thoughts, Mike? wrap us up?
Absolutely. I just got a red alert on my entertainment app. David Bloom will be opening at the Comedy Store on February 30. So contact me for tickets.
It's actually on April 1st, but I have to run on.
I thought February 30th was somebody might not get that, so I thought it was more
You
subtle.
might not get that until they start.
Listen, y'all been great. Thanks for doing this, David.
Yeah.
And thanks to OTT.X.
Yeah, that's actually leap day. So you leap beyond leap day, which we'll be celebrating this year. So anyway, but thank you for the promoting my show. It's actually, I don't stand up, I sit down while I do my jokes. Anyway, thank you all. I will turn it back to the esteemed Eric Hansen to take out the door. Thank you, everybody, for a fantastic conversation.
Thanks tons, y'all. I learned a lot what to do with the extra $10 billion that I have sitting around, not the least of which. That's terrific. So yeah, thanks again, David, Andy, Kristen, Mike, Quincy, and Thomas for taking us on that insightful and invigorating ride down the rabbit hole, over the top, and for the most part, I think without careening off the rails. Thanks again. We also spent an entire hour without anyone mentioning AI at all. So now I've done it, but thanks so much for that. We're going to be back again with our next episode of The Buzz on February 14th. That's right, Valentine's Day. You can bring your sweetie, grab some chocolate, pour some coffee, and you all can enjoy an hour's exploration into what's cooking in OTT streaming. What better way to spend Valentine's Day? You can register to attend this and future episodes from our website at OTT.X.org and find our podcast on Spotify. I hope you'll join us and invite your friends and colleagues as well to get in on the buzz. We're proud at OTT.X to offer these sessions free to the OTT industry on behalf of our membership. If you're not yet a member, I do want to invite you to head out to the site, OTT.X.org, and look into what it would mean for you to become one. With membership tiers for a broad range of organizations and professionals. We'll drop the link into the chat right now so you all can check into that. Until next time, thanks everybody and happy streaming.
Take care. Thank you, everyone.